Warning: contains somewhat mature content, including language, brief violence, and mild sexual themes, and may not be suitable for people under age 14.
Somehow, I don't think that's what's been going on, she said. Something's bothering you. I sighed and nodded. Something is bothering me, okay? But it's private, I told her, looking away. Cherry hopped off the bed and joined her siblings. For a while, I could feel Natalie's gaze on me. After a moment, she surprised me by suddenly laying on top of me. I blinked at her. "What are you doing?" I asked, feeling very uncomfortable. Natalie blushed. "Cole, you can tell me anything, okay?" she said. She began caressing my cheek. I've really liked you, Cole, for a long time." You'd think I'd be excited by this point, but I wasn't. I actually felt bored and apathetic. She leaned in and kissed my lips softly. I didn't feel any pleasant chills or anything like I felt when Rain kissed me. I sort of turned my head, breaking the kiss, which made her look at me strangely. It was obvious she was hurt by that. "Natalie, I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in you," I told her. She frowned. "Well, why not? Aren't I pretty?" she asked. I looked at her and nodded. "Yeah, you are," I admitted. "But it's not a factor of whether you're pretty or not. I like someone else." I felt my face grow hot and my eyes began to water. Natalie watched me carefully and then gasped softly. "Do you like Rain?" she asked slowly and quietly. I looked at her quickly, feeling cold all of a sudden. "What makes you think that?" I asked nervously. Natalie smiled, but it was kind of a grimace. "Well, there's a number of clues, really," she said. "You got sick right after he started going out with my brother, and you even stopped hanging around him. You seemed almost relieved when I told you they weren't hanging out this weekend, and you're not at all turned on with me on top of you. It's obvious you're not attracted to me or any other girl for that matter. Please, please don't tell anybody, especially not my parents," I begged. "If they found out, I'd have to spend the rest of my life in a small room covered in giant pillows." Natalie smiled. "Don't worry," she said. "Even though you're not interested in me, I still like you. I'll do everything I can to make you happy. And if that's keeping your secret, so be it." I sighed in relief, closing my eyes. I opened my eyes quickly when I heard someone approaching my room. "My mom's coming," I said. "You should probably get off of me." I saw Natalie furrow her brow in thought. "I have a better idea," she muttered. She took my hand and put it up her shirt, making me grope her. "Pretend to enjoy it," she said, then kissed me deeply. Mom opened the door and I heard her freeze, staring at us. I pretended to engage as much as I could, wondering what on earth Natalie was thinking. Surprisingly, I heard Mom laugh. Natalie broke the kiss and gasped, pulling my hand out of her shirt. "Miss Learson!" she exclaimed. "I'm so sorry!" Mom shook her head. "It's all right, dear," she said. "I'm not mad. Just don't get too intimate. I don't want grandchildren quite yet." Natalie laughed nervously and got up. "Well, I'll be going now. Feel better, Cole," she said and quickly left. Mom came over and sat on my bed, smiling and stroking my hair lovingly. She hadn't done something like that since I was 4 and had the chicken pox. "My son has a girlfriend," she said. "It's about time. How long have you two been going out?" "A month," I lied quickly. "You're not mad that we were—" I didn't finish, trying to pretend I was embarrassed at getting caught. Mom laughed. "Of course not," she said. "I'm just happy she's female. But please don't get her pregnant, okay?" I had to fight myself to not look grossed out. Instead, I managed to look amused. "Don't worry, Mom, I'm not even ready for that," I said, which was the truth. Besides, it wasn't like I was gonna get anything anyway. I'd spend the rest of my life alone without the one person I really wanted, and it was all my fault. I suddenly felt very sick again. Mom? I feel kind of tired, so can you get out and let me sleep?" Mom smiled and kissed my forehead, leaving the room. I wasn't really going to sleep. I just wanted to be alone. I had a lot to think about now. I realized I was fully homosexual, for I had groped a woman's breast and not even got any pleasure out of it. I also realized I was in love with Rain, and I had made a horrible mistake by not even giving him a chance because I was scared, and now I might have lost him forever. Then I began to think about what Natalie had told me. Rain and Sean didn't go to the movies Saturday. Sean went to the party, and Rain must have stayed home. Then today, they weren't even hanging out together. Did they break up suddenly? I decided not to get my hopes up on that one. I closed my eyes and made a rash decision. Whether or not I felt sick tomorrow, I was going to go to school and observe Rain and Sean, and whether or not they were still going out, at lunch I was going to go to Rain, pull him aside, and tell him what a huge mistake I made. My heart was pounding with excitement and fear. What if Rain rejected me? Would I ever get over him? No, I don't think I would. I planned for that too, a crazy plan. If Rain rejected me, I'd go to my mom and tell her I'm homosexual. That way she'll put me in a mental hospital, and they'll put me on all these pills, and I'll be so distracted I won't be able to think about him anymore. It was desperate and stupid, but it was all I had. I really didn't want to commit suicide. I opened my eyes, got up, and rushed to the bathroom. The excitement and fear I had felt had caused my stomach to get uneasy again, and I threw up more stomach acid. I was hoping Rain wouldn't reject me. I didn't want to go to a mental hospital, especially when I didn't have any type of mental disease, unless you count mild depression. I went back to my bed and checked the clock. It was only 4, and I wanted to just sleep until morning when I'd go back to school. I set my alarm and turned over, closing my eyes and waiting to fall asleep. It took a few hours, but I finally managed it, drifting into a dizzy, dreamless sleep. My alarm went off the next morning and I woke up. I got out of bed and immediately felt extremely dizzy, but I told myself I had to go to school. I got ready rather slowly. I felt sicker than I had the last few days. I got dressed and then held back the urge to throw up. I grabbed my backpack and left the house, walking slowly to the bus stop. I waited there for the bus until it came, then boarded, relieved to be able to sit down again. I closed my eyes and rested my head against the back of the seat in front of me, and practically slept the whole way. Finally, I got to school and got off the bus, walking into the school and down the hallway I usually walk down. I sat down against the wall and panted, feeling cold and clammy. I was even sweating a little bit. I saw 2 pairs of feet walk by again, and looked up to see Rain and Sean holding hands, but they weren't having any type of conversation at all. I watched them carefully, feeling something was wrong with the way they walked together. I remembered the promise I made myself. Even if they were still going out, I was going to talk to Rain at lunch anyway. The first bell rang, and I went straight into the gym, quickly sitting down and closing my eyes, trying not to throw up. I watched the other students come in from the locker rooms and ended up sitting out on the bleachers again. While sitting there, I watched my team play. Every now and then, Rain looked over at me, and he almost looked worried about something. I saw him whisper to Sean, whose gaze flickered to me, but then he shrugged and they kept playing. I suddenly hated Sean even more than before. I sat there feeling very tired until it was time to go in again. I went into the hallway and waited for the bell to ring so I could go to math. Finally, it rang and I walked to my class and sat down. I looked over at Natalie, who stared at me as if I were a ghost or something. She hurried over to my desk and bent low to talk to me. "Cole," she gasped, "you look terrible." I blinked, not knowing what she was talking about. Of course, I felt terrible, but I hadn't looked in the mirror that morning, so I didn't know what I looked like today. "What do you mean I look terrible?" I asked, and then frowned. My voice was very hoarse. Natalie pulled out a little compact mirror and showed me my own reflection. I nearly screamed, for my face was extremely pallid, and I had dark bags under my eyes. "Why'd you come to school? You should have stayed home," Natalie exclaimed quietly. I looked around and pulled her closer. "I have to talk to Rain today," I whispered. "I can't take it anymore. I'm going to tell him I made a huge mistake." Natalie looked over at Sean as he walked through the door, and then looked back at me, speaking even more quiet than before. "How can I help?" she asked. I blinked. "Natalie, I don't think you can help," I replied. Natalie frowned. "Come on, Sean is my brother," she said in a low voice. "There's got to be some way I can help." I thought hard for a moment. I had to admit to myself that I really needed Natalie's help. After thinking for a few minutes, I had an idea. "Okay," I said quietly. "Get some girl to flirt with Sean and see if he gets lured by her in any way. I guess what I'm trying to say is, hook him up with another girl." Natalie smiled. "Oh, that's no problem," she said. "I heard Samantha's had a crush on him ever since freshman year. I'll have to wait until 4th period, though, okay?" I nodded, smiling weakly. "Thanks, Natalie, I owe you one," I told her. Natalie giggled and went off to her seat as the tardy bell rang. I sat through class, taking in the lecture and feeling very clammy the entire time. When the class ended, I went to 3rd period feeling even sicker. I knew it was because I was pushing myself to go to my classes and do work and take notes, but I had to. I had already missed way too much work. Through 3rd and 4th period, however, I couldn't concentrate on any schoolwork. I was too preoccupied with how Natalie was going to set up Sean and Samantha, and then very nervous about approaching Rain during lunch. I was worried he'd reject me. Suddenly, I started worrying about something else. What if he not only rejected me, but was also mad at me if Sean was attracted to Samantha? Finally lunch came, and I was so nervous I nearly threw up again. I walked over to my bent table and watched Rain over at his table. Sean was sitting by him, but was looking over at Samantha. He then started talking to Rain and nodded at Samantha slightly. I took a deep breath and decided it was time to try and pull Rain aside to talk to him. I stood up and swayed slightly. My vision swam violently and I stopped for a moment. I actually felt Rain's gaze on me. I took a step forward and collapsed onto the floor. The last thing I saw before I fainted were Rain's feet running over to me, and then I blacked out. I woke up in the nurse's office with a cold, wet washcloth on my forehead. I opened my eyes to see Rain staring at me, looking worried. I stared at him for a few minutes, studying his face. There were black smears stretching from his eyes down his cheeks. I noticed he had worn eyeliner today, but it looked as though he had been crying. He suddenly hugged me tightly, and I nearly started crying from it.
"I was so worried when I saw you faint," he said softly. "What happened? Are you sick?"
I nodded. "I don't know what I have," I replied hoarsely. "But it started when you started going out with Sean." Rain froze, and then slowly pulled away from me.
"Cole," he said slowly, "when was the last time you ate something?"
I had to think about that. "I don't even remember," I said, averting my gaze. "It was before the whole conversation in the broom closet." Rain sighed, hanging his head.
"This is all my fault,"
he said, sounding angry at himself. I furrowed my brow. "How is it your fault?" I asked. "I'm the one who rejected you, and then you went out with Sean." Rain put his finger on my mouth, silencing me.
"Sean and I,"
he said,
"have never gone out."
I stared at him disbelievingly. I pulled away from his finger and spoke. "But I saw you guys holding hands and kissing," I said, nearly panicking. Rain hushed me, trying to keep me calm.
"It was an act," he replied. "I was trying to make you jealous."
I furrowed my brow. "Well, it worked." Rain nodded.
"I know," he said. "Listen to me, though. Sean is completely straight. After we had that conversation, I asked the guys which one of them was willing to sacrifice the reputation and pretend to be my boyfriend. Sean was the only one willing to do that. They asked me why I needed to pretend to have a boyfriend, and I told them I was trying to make someone jealous. I get the feeling they thought I was trying to get a girl, because I never specified the gender of the person. I did that to protect you, Cole, but I realized that I was wrong, and I feel horrible for making you so depressed. I even went to feed the cat family behind the dumpster during the weekend just for you. Unfortunately, they were gone Sunday."
I blinked. "It was you who fed them?" I asked, remembering the filled food bowl when I went to take the cats home. "It's okay, Rain. I took the cats home and they're safe." Rain smiled.
"I should have known you'd take them home," he said.
Suddenly, Sean came into the room. Rain walked over to him.
"Sean, we can stop pretending. He knows now."
Sean furrowed his brow.
"What are you—"
He looked at me and his eyes widened.
"It was Cole you were trying to get."
Rain nodded.
"If you recall, I never said exactly who it was, nor did I say whether or not they were male or female."
Sean sighed.
"Why didn't I figure that out?" he asked. "After all, you pretended to go out with me, not a girl."
Sean walked over to me, looking sympathetic for once.
"You all right, buddy? Why'd you pass out?"
Rain answered for me.
"He starved himself,"
he said.
"He's suffering from malnourishment."
Sean frowned.
"The cafeteria is still open. I'll go get him some food."
He left Rain and I alone. "Why is he being so nice to me?" I asked. Rain smiled.
Because now he knows I love you, Cole,
he said smoothly. I blushed and my heart pounded painfully. You love me, I muttered, staring at him.